Welcome to the Rust Belt Minis hobby vlog. Today we're going to be getting into making the final shippable resin casts of these. They're going to be hollow. This is my giant rotting demon sculpture, the Gifter of Sight, and you might be asking, why are you showing me the resin cast instead of the original green stuff sculpture? Well, we're going to get into that too. Making this big guy semi-hollow like I want to is going to be a kind of a tricky process. I've never done something this big before. I've already screwed up my first attempt, and I better figure it out pretty soon because I'm going to be shipping all 20 that I've pre-sold through Kickstarter, and I want people to get a great product. This is the pre-production version, which is totally solid and still has the plinth on the bottom that's going to be sanded off for the final production one. So the finished version will probably be 9 or 10 ounces lighter if we're lucky. It's still going to be a whopper, but should be much more manageable than this guy to move around the tabletop and that kind of thing. Here's a quick update on the resin casting for the Kickstarter. I've got all the little guys done now. They still need to be cleaned up. About 2/3 of the tanks are done. I got the large quad damage models done. There's the demonic chicken nuggies in the back there. So things are moving right along. I should be shipping up probably in the next 2 weeks. I'm super excited about these Demon Queen resin casts. They came out so freaky and the details are really crisp, and I used a little bit of baby powder during the casting process to put, kind of like a matte finish on these as I do everything else to make them easy to paint. I really want to see how folks paint these guys. They're going to come on an 80mm round base, and if you're into grimdark stuff, weathering, gross stuff, gore, this is gonna be your model. This is gonna be really cool. Also, here's an update on the enormous tree folk horror sculpture named Billy Verdon that I started in the last hobby vlog. He started out as a Mountain Dew can, and now it looks like this. I put another, 6 hours of sculpting into the front. I've got the belly and belly button good. I've got the mouth just about figured out. The tongue that kind of looks like a pumpkin stem to me came out really good too. And here's the back. There's some more shelf fungus. Here's the spine that's supposed to kind of look like it could be a split in a tree, but also a spine. And I've started hollowing out these big sections of trunk. And this is still the placeholder eye. I've got a better one in mind that I'm going to put on that looks more like a tree knot, and I'm going to be doing some sculpting on that too. Here he is next to the Gifter of Sight model that I painted for my own army. You can see he's going to end up being even a little bit bigger than this big guy. This is a 130mm round base these guys are on. For scale, including the base height, this is about 1.5 inches tall. This is the Permadeath Mini from Miscast and Smash Bash. So, pretty enormous models. And if I can get the casting process for these down perfectly, I think I'll really have something here. So this solid resin cast that I painted came out of this giant silicone mold that I made. It's super detailed, it's super deep, it's massively resource intensive, expensive, and a little janky. It also produced this one, which is now the new master. This was the first pull from this mold. This one's solid resin like I explained earlier. So this is going to be the master going forward because something terrible happened to the green stuff master sculpt that I used to make this mold, and I'll show you that in a second. So the original sculpt was done a lot like this one. It was an aluminum foil and wire armature with green stuff putty and some resin casts of things I duplicated of my previous hand sculpts on top of it. And this is what happened to it when I tried to take it out of the mold. It was completely destroyed. Mind you, I worked on this for about 18 months on and off, so it kind of sucked when it broke. Like with any great engineering disaster, a couple things had to go wrong for this to happen. First, it was pretty weak. It was very hollow. It was built around an old wiffle ball I found in the lake originally. In addition to that, I grossly underestimated how much mold release oil I should use and how much I was going to have to cut the mold to extract it successfully. But at least the mold's good, so I've got a solid resin master to work off of, and this is just going to go in a box and go on a shelf, and I can look at it once in a while and be sad. But, we learn a lot more from our failures and our successes, I guess, so there's always that. One of the neat tricks I figured out with sculpting really large models is if I'm making something like a head, I'll do it by itself in green stuff and milliput first, and then I'll make a mold and cast of that, and then stick that onto the final assembly. That lets me resculpt on and, whittle and tweak the final design without sacrificing the original bit that I probably spent weeks on, and now that can go into my bits library and it can make its way into other projects. And while we're in here, I'll show you a couple other neat tricks I figured out. So this is a rusty, crusty chain effect, and I started out with just thin jewelry chain and built it up with texture paste and green stuff and filled in every last gap so that it would cast properly. I'm pretty dedicated to doing everything by hand and not using a computer for any step of the process, so it was either this or make it all out of green stuff a little bit at a time. That would probably add a lot longer to the project and also drive me crazy in the process. So it was kind of neat, kind of a neat hack figuring this one out. Now to make the stick, I used an actual stick as the armature. Here's the thing, I broke off some of the bark, and there's this wood boring pattern from a beetle or something, and that wasn't preserved in this part, but the very bottom of it, I decided to leave that exposed. I sealed it in green paint so that the silicone wouldn't soak in or do anything weird. And the final effect is you've got kind of this fantasy looking tree limb this guy's using as a club, and then the bottom has the sculpting done by Nature Sculptor our friend the wood borer. So I'm working on the tooling to make it semi-hollow to take the extra weight off. And this is what I've come up with. This is a piece of Chivant oil clay. It doesn't ever harden all the way. I started using a ballpoint pen to carve the words in backwards that are going to show on the underside of the model. And this funny smiley face with its eyes crossed out because, you know, this guy's eyes are gouged out, so it's kind of on brand. So I need to make a silicone version of this, which is going to act as a devolumizing block that lowers into the mold and displaces resin, which I won't have to pour in. It'll top off right here. Then the silicone part comes out, and you're going to be left with a hollow underneath. Lots of space around still for the resin to fill in properly, because I don't want this thing to be fragile or brittle. It's still going to be a, still going to be a beast when it's done. And I've already attempted this process once and screwed it up royally. Here's the result. Both the mold that I made and the part were pretty much destroyed. This was the best that I got out of it. As you can see, all the letters and the general shape are ruined, except this came out okay, so that's proof of concept. I just have to use a lot more mold release next time, be more conscientious. And we're going to try that again. And I know what it looks like I'm trying to make here, and I've already heard it. So keep it to yourself. I think with demolding the original and trying to make this part, the problem I'm running into is surface area. I just need so much more oil to get this thing to release because it's a matter of surface area. Whereas, my smaller miniatures before this were no problem at all. So this is part of the learning curve of making really big stuff. I can see why not a lot of people do it. It's very resource intensive, and anytime you screw up, it's like, oh geez, I don't know how many ounces of silicone this and its mold were, but I'm going to chunk it up and reuse a lot of it, but it's pretty expensive. It adds up fast. Like with most things in life, friction is the enemy. It must be overcome. So we're going to try that again. I got a new mold cask built for this guy. It's made out of cardboard, hot glue, and packing tape. And I'm using these really big vinyl siding snips to chunk up all that ruined silicone to use as fill when I'm making the new tools. And speaking of giant snips, oh boy, they really got away from me this time. Tendon's still working great, so that's just flash. I'm really happy about that. Okay, I've got that filled with the cured silicone now. You can see all the recycled chunks that I used kind of in suspension. Oh man, check it out. I didn't seal the bottom of the cardboard good enough, and some of the silicone rose up through the corrugation. Look at that! Okay, I wrestled the clay master out of the mold without destroying it. I don't know if you can see, but there's all the lettering intact. So now I can try to cast the final silicone devolumizing block again. Come on! There it is, a half-gallon block of silicone. Let's see if it worked. Oh, that's a satisfying delamination. Look at that. All right, tons of mold release, made it come out pretty easily this time around. I didn't ruin it like the last time. There's all the backwards lettering that's going to transfer to the resin. With a little bit of luck, that should be all the tooling we now need to make the final shippable version of this thing. Going to be a semi-hollow, one-piece, giant demon or demigod of decay. Quick pollinator garden update. I deadheaded the milkweed so that the monarchs will have something tender to munch on. They're starting to show up.
Alright, come on, let's try it. Let's see if the devolumizing block works. Oh yeah. That's the stuff. Alright, let's see how we did. A little bit of flash on a normal line, so far so good. Yeah. Oh yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. Woo! I'm just going to sand it, clean it up a little. So it'll be good to go. It weighs about 24 ounces. It's heavy, but not prohibitively so.
Before I forget to mention it, make sure you subscribe to this channel if you want to see these projects move along and see more of my process. The final product ready to ship now. I used the benchtop sander to take the plinth off the bottom. I used the hobby knife to hand chamfer the inside edges. The lettering all came out pretty good. It's all crisp. You can see Buffalo, New York, my name and the copyright, the funny little guy with the crossed out eyes, and Rust Belt Minis. Okay, time to put in some serious hours finishing up the last of the resin cast so I can get the Kickstarter shipped out. Oh.